Hey there, my name is AJ Pickett and I make videos about role-playing games, and lots of them. I upload twice a week with a live stream every weekend. You can also find me on Subscribestar, Patreon and Discord, Facebook and Twitter. Also, there's an option to join the channel as a member, and I welcome any questions you have in the comment section below. As always, if you like this video or this channel, hit that like button and subscribe if you would be so kind. You may notice a trend in some of my recent videos. The creature we're about to investigate today will confirm I am tracking the origins and activities of the oldest known still active species in the multiverse, and the loathsome, worm-like Psurlons are indeed incredibly ancient. So sit back, grab a tasty beverage, we're about to get deeply nerdy. Wherever you go in the D&D multiverse, even to some of the most hard-to-reach isolated locations, the Psurlons have arrived there before you. Even to the crystal sphere containing the dying world of Athas for the Dark Sun campaign's setting, the Psurlons were drawn to the strange grey planet Blight like moths to a flame and squirmed their way into that planet. The Githyanki know the Psurlons extremely well and hate them almost as much as they hate the Mind Flayers. The three species are in a perpetual war for dominance of the astral plane, and I think we all hope that creatures like the Psurlons never manage to achieve that goal, as we shall discover. Many viewers have asked me for examples of intelligent oozes and shapeless horrors that existed before Gonadau blasted their minds in a state of psychotic rage, and the Psurlons are an excellent example of one species where such an event was just shrugged off by their powerful minds, even as they watched nations of Obelix and other shapeshifters fall into utter ruin around them. The Psurlon have seen the decline of the Illithid's pan-dimensional empire and seen the imprisonment of the mad god Tharizdun. They have a religion centered on homage to the entity Mak-Thum Nagatha, also known as the Nine-Tongued Worm, a horrific greater entity of the Far Realm, worshipped by all manner of vile aberrations and crazed cultists, including another ancient species, the tentacled Nilshai, native to the ethereal plane, and also the Sorchari species, found in the pages of 3.5 edition's Lord of Madness sourcebook. Physically, the Psurlons are not a very evolved-looking species. They look like giant mutant earthworms with two large arms ending in ripping talons. Their long body ends with a gaping, fleshy and fang-filled maw, sometimes surrounded by a cluster of beady eyes, nostrils and ear holes, kind of randomly, or some kind that affords them reasonable means to detect things around them, even in total darkness out to 60 feet. In other cases, they have no visible sensory organs around their lamprey-like mouth. They use their psychic powers to sense the world around them. Their arms are boneless, twitching and writhing worm-like things themselves, with hook claws on the end that look like a proto-mouth with grossly extended fangs for fingers. Their lower body simply divides into two thicker worm-like growths that seem like a mockery of humanoid legs. They are classified clearly as an aberration, a burrowing carnivore species with formidable intelligence, aggression and potent psychic powers. Often a clear warning that Psurlon are active in a location is the strange new behaviour of gnolls and goblinoids, who are often targeted by the Psurlons for their brand of mental domination and manipulation, causing the goblinoids to give up whatever activities they were engaged in and focus entirely on the motives and schemes of their new worm masters. If you happen to encounter a lot of goblins in the deep zones of the Underdark, it may mean that there is a Psurlon somewhere nearby issuing mental instructions across the 250-foot range of their telepathy. Grells and cloakers may gravitate to areas where Psurlons are starting to dominate, and some sages mistakenly believe there is a deeper connections, such as a shared origin in the Far Realm. But the truth is, the Grell and cloakers are simply drawn to such a concentration of psychic power. For what purpose, we dare not ponder, but I suspect it may be them seeking a means to awaken ancient powers and return the multiverse to a state of chaos. The true origin of the Psurlons was just a simple world in the prime-material plane where these beings faced a unique environment that favoured the development of their mind over any physical development. There are different stories of their origin in the various editions of the game. In one, the Psurlons began as humanoid creatures who attempted a psychic transformation of the entire species into a gestalt, or a hive mind, a single superconsciousness composed of all members of their species. However, the planet itself could not sustain such raw psychic power and exploded, tearing a hole into the astral plane and casting the surviving mutated remnants of the Psurlon species into the void, where they discovered they now looked like hideous boneless worms with only the faintest trace of their former humanoid shape remaining. Their lower body divided into two worm tails in place of their legs, and upper arms now ending in cruel hooked claws. In another version, the Psurlon enhanced their psychic abilities to such a level that they had no need to build technology or face the brutal process of natural evolution by survival of the fittest. No, they used their minds to change their own form. Unfortunately, these initial experiments resulted in disaster, with drastic reactions to the transformative effects, enlarging test subjects to giant sizes who laid waste to what primitive material resources the Psurlons had, destabilizing their entire homeworld and forcing the survivors to flee into the astral plane, which their high-powered minds occupied more than the material plane anyway. Now, physically displaced and wandering the multiverse, the Psurlons seek out potential worlds to occupy and drain of resources, breeding in vast numbers, then leaving once again, rather than putting any effort into cleaning up the mess or attempting to limit their excesses and simply live in harmony with the planet and its ecosystem. They no longer desire to live in the primaterial plane. They prefer the psychic realm of the astral and the greater freedom it gives them as mental powerhouses. They use the prime material plane for breeding, for enjoying the act of feasting on meat, particularly human and halfling flesh, which is a delicacy in their culture, and for stealing psionic lore and artifacts discovered and created by other species. The Psurlons still haven't given up on their plan to one day unite their race into a psionic gestalt, but the astral plane isn't a compatible environment for it. A psychic pulse of that magnitude would most certainly attract the attention of many astral dreadnoughts, which could obliterate their entire species. So if they want to try mind melding again, they need to find a material plane world that can withstand that much psionic energy. This is the reason why Athas has caught their attention. The planet's prolonged history of psionics and strongly psionic ecosystem suggests it might be a compatible world that they're looking for. Currently, there are 3 known forms of Psurlon. By far the most common is the pink-skinned, 5-foot-long, 130-pound or so average Psurlon, which is simply the first stage of life for these creatures. Psurlons can live up to 1,500 years, but their tendency to dwell in the timelessness of the astral plane extends that lifespan significantly. Their transformation into an elder or giant form is difficult to predict for this reason. After perhaps centuries of mentally dominating groups of slaves, the Psurlon undergo a maturing process which either results in a transformation to a much more mentally powerful elder Psurlon, or rarely a transformation into the giant Psurlon instead. The Psurlons are led by specially reared and educated psionicists known as Psurlon adepts, which not only serve as protectors and leaders of the Psurlon settlements, but also sometimes serve as the race's scouts, exploring the astral plane's outer reaches and into other realms in pursuit of knowledge, power, food, and slaves. The race also possesses a small number of unique mutants, which are the giant Psurlons, who grow to immense size and gain formidable powers, surpassing even many of the adepts. These creatures are shunned by their kin, however, who consider them to be cursed monsters, mutations, aberrations. Most giant Psurlons establish lonely dens in the astral plane, but a few have taken over Psurlon cities and rule them as vicious tyrants. You never can tell. Sometimes they're very physically powerful but mentally stunted. They're usually at least as intelligent as a human being though, and some of them are potent psychics as well. All Psurlons are quite intelligent, including the giants, with an ill-tempered and distrusting nature. They're cruel, deceitful monsters who detest humanoid life forms and make a sport of fomenting discord among other races, communities, and even entire nations, just for the pleasure of seeing them destroy themselves and collapse into primitive anarchy. Due to variations between editions, you may choose to depict the Psurlon physical form as being primitive but unstable, and some losing their split of their lower body into 2 leg-like tentacle tails in favour of more slug-like method of locomotion. However, the Lords of Madness book depicts them as having a worm-like body, worm-like arms with hooked claws, a lamprey head, and a lower body sprouting primitive hooked insectile legs, and the 2 main arms are more like a praying mantis claw, so they're a weird combination of worm and insect. 4th edition lore is also quite different, but the core of their origin remains the same. The ritual went horribly wrong. A humanoid species was detached from the prime material plane and their bodies and hurled psychically into the astral plane, where they had to take up residence and dwell inside these worm-like creatures, which in theory they could mentally transform to look more and more like their former appearance, but they generally don't do that and now hate the humanoid form. Psurlons are an interesting species for a number of reasons in 5th edition. First of all, many players are not exactly sure how to deal with psychic powers. Same goes with many dungeon masters for that matter, so I'll include a link in the description down below this video which goes directly to the Psionics PDF document that Wizards of the Coast released not so long ago. That should clear up a lot of confusion. 5th edition has gone back to the old school view of psionics in that any intelligent being whose species is capable of psionics does have a chance of manifesting psychic abilities. It's not restricted by character class, and you don't have to be a dedicated psionic character class either. You can be a fighter or a ranger with psionics, or a wizard or a monk or cleric. So there's lots of options and a group of psionic options to choose from. Psychic powers are handled using a bunch of dice, much like the existing mechanic for fighters, special abilities using expertise dice in combat. So it's an existing sort of mechanic that we're used to in 5th edition. There are stats for the average Elder and Giant Psurlon in D&D Beyond. I won't go over them in great detail here, but you can just go and follow the links down below and check them out. Use them as the basis for your Psurlons if you wish. The way I would use Psurlons in a campaign would be to introduce them as a wild card in a larger conflict the player characters may get involved with, which they shouldn't really get involved with, such as an attack on a Githyanki city in the Astral Sea by a large number of Psurlon, which is just a random freak event, but it causes the Githyanki to all but ignore a small bunch of player characters who sneak around as all hell breaks loose in the city defense of the Githyanki's home. This is a great narrative-based technique, by the way, for allowing lower-level player characters to access a higher-level location without having to worry too much about them getting discovered and wiped out in the first random encounter. Rather, they may be captured and interrogated for being suspected spies, then finding a way to team up with another prisoner who has been working on a daring escape plan for years and now is their chance to put it into action with the player character's help. Along the way, they may encounter Psurlon operatives who think the escaped prisoners are perfect subjects to take home for more thorough investigation of the Githyanki's prisons and interrogation chambers that they now know how to break into the jail and murder the guards, pouring their forces into the heart of the Githyanki domain. Weaving your player objectives around those sort of complications can make a setting really come to life and get to showcase two alien cultures at war with each other as the player characters witness this conflict taking place all around them. You don't have to describe exactly how things are happening or why. The players get to figure it out for themselves, and there is the added thrill of them knowing if they get caught, they maybe won't survive. What happens if, seeing all the disruption going on, another psychic faction, the Elithids, decide to wage their own operation to destroy the Githyanki and the Psurlons in as great a number as possible due to one of their important elder brains being seriously hurt on the prime material plane and having to retreat fully into the astral form nearby? There are many, many possibilities. Please hit the like button if you made it this far, subscribe if you like what I do, check out my Subscribestar or Patreon links for all the full scripts for these videos, buy some Teespring merchandise, wear your geek with pride, and as always, thanks for listening, and I'll be back with more for you very soon.